Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about marriage and when you are married or in a serious relationship, specifically for the people in those categories, when you have chronic OCD, anxiety, or anything else is going wrong in your life, and how that can affect your relationship and why it's so easy to drop relationships and divorce nowadays. And people have many different reasons for divorce. But the problem that we see nowadays, we have so much freedom and choice, which is great. There's a lot of benefits in that. But on the other side of the coin, all of that freedom could actually be quite negative in a sense, to where we have so many choices that humans are all, am I making the right choice? Is this the right choice? Instead of just sticking out with the choice that they make and accepting that it could be the wrong decision and making the best of that situation. I'm not saying that's always the best option, but it is an option to take into account. You could always be wrong, whatever the decision is in your life, whether you choose to be single, in a relationship. It doesn't really matter what it is. So it is important to go through this. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this. Please reach out if you need help to Phil at OCDrecovery.com, and we can get back to you in a timely fashion. And you can learn more about the webinar services, one-to-one, how to get access to the WhatsApp groups, etc. So I have been with my wife since October of 2016. We met on Bumble, which is a dating app. We didn't know anyone. We went to grad school. We both moved there together. It was funny. She was saying in her mind how she didn't want to get involved with anyone. And then when she met me, she said, "Oh, how do you like chiropractic school?" And I said, "Oh, I start in 2 weeks." And she said, "Oh, shit." She told me this later. "Oh, shit, I can't ignore this kid now because he's in my class." So a lot of people, when they start something new, and she's moving here from Canada, so it's a completely new world for her in many ways, different country, and she wanted to start anew in many ways and probably didn't want to get into a relationship. One thing led to another. We hung out every single day for 2 weeks, and the next thing you know, we were in a relationship. And even when I didn't have chronic OCD, so let's say all of 17, 18, and then a little bit of 2019, there were still a lot of things that were problematic in our relationship. We got married in that timeline after about 3 years of being together, and we just had a lot on our plates. We were in grad school. My father died. Then my aunt died. My mom's only siblings. My mom lost her husband. Even though they were separated, they were still very close. They weren't divorced. Husband, then her only sibling. 3 months later, then their dog, my dog Lily, that slept in my mom's bed for 10 years, all within like a 100-day period. So that was really, really tough. I believe it was a 100 to 120-day period. Then I had to deal with all that. I had a really bad anger problem at the time. I was not good at managing my emotions by any means because my belief systems were really bad. So I took that out on Erica a lot. I just yelled a lot. We'd get in disagreements. I would put her down. I'd be like, "You don't know what you're talking about. It's so stupid." In that sense, a lot of people do this, and it's not good. Many marriages end and relationships end because one or both people have an ego problem, which is usually a self-rejection problem. Ego is completely misunderstood. Like, we can blame Freud for that. Freud was extremely intelligent, made very good points, but as I say in many videos, I think he missed the mark on the ego, specifically the ego, a lot. The ego is primarily self-rejection. It's self-rejection manifesting in a way where someone comes across as narcissistic personality traits, which isn't really the case at all. They just don't know how to be vulnerable. They don't know how to accept that they could be wrong. So that comes across in that way when it's not actually ego at all. It's just a face of egotistical. It's very similar to when Voldemort and Harry killed each other's Horcruxes in the second Harry Potter. Then he went to that, what is it, King's Crossing station, and he was the baby, if you're a Harry Potter fan. So he had this big persona, but underneath it was actually a childish persona, an image of himself that he was afraid of being. It's very similar to that. Narcissism, true narcissism, is quite rare. It's very, very, very rare. It's not maybe not very, very, very rare, but let's put it to you this way, it's rare. It's not as simple as, oh, 1 out of 6 people are narcissists, which I just saw as a podcast title and a really big, it's just nonsense. It's not real. But, and just because your ex-boyfriend calls you fat or a loser does not mean he's a narcissist. If your ex-girlfriend tells you you're a loser, you don't make any money, you have small genitalia, that doesn't mean she's a narcissist. It just means that these people don't know how to communicate it properly for the most part. And you'll never be able to know if someone's a quote-unquote true narcissist, and it also doesn't matter. So, but when we got married, my OCD got really, really bad 6 months later, chronically. And Erica went through a lot, calling the police to the house multiple times, having to put me in the mental hospital. There was just a lot of things that would go wrong. because I didn't know how to manage any of my belief systems, and I was operating off what I call this primal instinct, which is a protective mechanism of you're wrong, I'm right, I don't want to hear shit you have to say, you're an idiot, etc., which wasn't good. It was really, really bad for the relationship, but I had to work on that if I wanted to actually get better and have a longer lasting relationship. Now, as I tell people, even being married, even being married, that you'll never know whether you made the right. Nobody, OCD or not, no matter what they tell you, because the counter arguments in discussion cannot be provable. They're not provable by facts. Gravity. Right? Boom. Happens every time. That's a repeatable fact. Okay? Keep dropping it. That is a law. Okay? A lot of things are not law. 99.9% of things are literally subjective, even when people think that they're law. Like universal principle of being nice. Well, if you have two different people fighting against each other, both think they're right. So it's very subjective, no matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter how many people agree with them. So that was really, really hard for me to accept, because when you get married, we all say to each other, you're the love of my life and all that. And those are all great, but you'll never actually know if the person you're with, I always use an example. If I died tomorrow, I would hope Erica would remarry and have children with that person. I don't think it would be a justice to herself if she didn't do that. So if I died, she processed it in her own ways, maybe met someone 5 years from now, got married by 2029, 30, and then was with that person for 10 years, that person becomes the one, and I become a distant memory of Erica's life. So you can't actually know who's the one by any means. The decision I made is very, very good for me. I love Erica very much. Not in the sense of how do you know if I love him? I don't look at that. I don't compare love. And love is 100% subjective. There are no markers, no matter how many therapists or coaches or gurus tell you the 5 ways to know you're in love. Run away from those titles. There's no way to know whatsoever. It's very easy to fall into those traps. You show signs of love, but you never know if the emotional connection with love is the purest form for you. It's hard to accept that until you're really, really working on that. So, and I had to look at that, because I looked at my marriage and I said, I have a great connection with Erica when it happens. I don't force connection. I have great romance and bonding, anywhere from kissing to intercourse. We own a business together, which is good and bad. We get in disagreements about things, but we come together at the end, but we also work together as a team. It's just not what people think. And I've only been married for 5 years, coming up on 6 here next year in February. So, 5 years and 3 months together for almost 8 or 9. It's not what people really think. It's not this, like when people tell me that they look in their partner's eyes all the time and they feel love 24/7, 10 years into a relationship, although I understand what I'm about to say can also not be justified, I don't think that that's healthy. Because when you meet people like that, they have a hard time doing things on their own. They have a hard time being alone. They have a hard time operating as a singular unit in time, which is really important to cover. So we have to look at those particular categories and all those pieces when you're working with someone who's struggling with OCD in a relationship, etc. And then I had to accept everything about Erica. So I had to accept Erica, her family, where she came from economically, geographically, her belief systems, how she saw politics, money, religion, all the big topics that people have to come through and stuff like that. And there's so many myths out there in the sense of, you hear it all the time. I know some really big conservative podcasts, for an example, because politics is an easy example. You cannot marry someone that votes on the other side of the party as you. That is such a silly statement. I'm not saying it's not going to be easy, but there could be some common ground. Eric and I don't agree on everything politically. We have, when it comes to, say, consequences and punishments, we hold a little bit different perspectives on that. We might hold a little bit different perspectives on, say, monetary policy and income. That's okay, because, and I value those things a lot, but I don't view that in some sort of line-ending area, this is the end of my marriage. But so many people do that. It's because we've been fed all that nonsense, all the big, big podcasts, right? The ones that we all know, right? The big ones, the Rogans, the Diary of a CEO. I mean, these really big ones out there with millions and millions and millions and millions of followers that have these really catchy titles of, like, 5 ways to know you're in love. And if your partner does these 3 things, it's not the person for you. And you just, there's those podcasts hardly offer good information at all. I mean, there's tidbits here and there, but it's very rigid. It's just, we have a luxury nowadays, right? And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just a different time. As I always say, George Carlin put it the best, and I think it was his 91 or 92 stand-up, that too many, I said someone and I were talking about this earlier today in a voice note, too many options is not really a good thing for many people because they get analysis paralysis. But there are a lot of pros of that type of freedom depending on where you live. But simpler life can be from sticking with something, being consistent with that one thing. These are all the things I had to apply and making the best of that situation. That doesn't mean if Erica left me tomorrow, I wouldn't be sad and potentially cry and have short-term depression, but I'd find a way to change my perspectives and come out the other side, hopefully, because I think that's the most beneficial thing for me overall. So, and that's how I changed all of my beliefs in my marriage. And again, it doesn't matter what Erica did in the past. It didn't matter if she was celibate when she came in or she slept with 500 people. I mean, all these things are all made up. I hear this too. Well, I want to be with someone like, I heard this guy and he has a podcast with 6 million people. And he said that your girl needs to have a low body count. And I flipped that on his head. And I remember this person said, whoa, that's a wild perspective. And I made it up completely on the spot. And so it was just random. He said, well, what happens if I'm with a girl? I'm with a girl with a low body count. I said, okay, let's say that girl has had sex with one person. And then that person wasn't that good in bed in their perception. And then you gave them better intimacy. Now in their mind, they go, oh shit, that was better than the other person. What's else out there? Maybe they have a higher propensity to cheating. What happens if you date an ex-porn star who slept with 3,000 men? Her belief is, I hate being used and abused. I'm sick of the industry. I'm willing to do everything in my power to be monogamous and stay with that person. And maybe they become more of a Christian value. This is a total random example. That person might more than likely be a better wife and better values and morals because of her previous experiences. And I remember the person saying to me, that is a wild perception because there's some serious truth now. I said, no, we just don't know. We have no idea. You think someone who's never had sex, remember someone who's celibate, what happens when they have sex and they say, damn, I missed out on a lot? I know because I've worked with a couple cases like this. Or people went into a marriage, they were celibate, or they've had sex with one person. Then they had better sex and they were like, oh my gosh, I want to experiment. And I've also seen the other way, someone who's been with 100, 200, 300 people, which that just wasn't the life for me anymore and I really wanted to settle down. Society is very rigid when they get something in their mind. And when they have a particular value, like relationships, they get caught in their head and they're like, this is the way it has to be. And that's how I changed my views in my relationships. But I also had to work on compromise. I also had to work on things and meeting Erica halfway in the middle. And I had to work on a lot of particular beliefs. The books on the reading list are the most important books. But there was a really good book by Ellis as well in the Stubbornly Refused series. If you open up the book, it's always right here. There's those like 5 books right there. The one I really like is How to Stop Destroying Your Relationships, A Better Guide to Dating, Mating, and Relating, and How to Control Your Anger Before It Controls You. I've read all of them, except I think for one, How to Stop People from Pushing Your Buttons. The other 5 I've read are 4. The relationship one is a very good supplement if you're suffering with this, because there's a chapter in there that says 5 ways to maintain a healthy relationship, and none of them have to do with the way you feel. Not one thing. So thank you so much for watching. Please reach out, phil@ocdrecovery.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Please subscribe. We're close to 20. By the time this comes out, I might have 20,000, and hope to hear from you soon. Have a good one, everyone.